So today we are making a technical analysis of a traditional number 9. Ralph Charuma, the young Panthers forward. Is the goal-getter the next Zimbabwean legend? Is the goal poacher technically sound? Let's take a look. So I believe the goal in this opening play reflects on Ralph's nickname. The 16-year-old is affectionately known as the baby-faced assassin. Off a quick free kick, you see him is in play, he's found his way into the penalty area, he controls with his right one touch and finishes. So Ralph is a light frame but decent height, and he is able to constantly sneak in behind defense or just between defenders. In this play, he snuck in behind, and this was his second goal of the match against Afrochina, I believe. In this play, Ralph is still undetected at the edge of the penalty area. This time though, he strikes with his left foot, a clinical strike still, just show how lethal he is, being able to use both his feet. So Ralph leads the attack at the MWOS under-17 team. So the under-17 team competes in the Division 2, which is the third tier of Zimbabwean football. So there's the Zimbabwean Premier League, then there's the First Division, then there's the Second Division. What's important to note in evaluating Ralph is that he actually plays against stronger players, sometimes older players, and sometimes former players who've played previously in the Zimbabwean Premiership top flight or in the First Division. So it's important to note how good and how lethal he is, and how he is actually very clinical in reaching these numbers, competing against such professional and accomplished players, defenders and midfielders. So these facts and numbers suggest that he is very clinical in front of goal, and in particular the eye test to show that his work in the penalty area is very much commendable. Now switching back to the eye test, there you see Ralph starting a half space, more border between the middle third and the final third. He is under pressure, but he finds his way into the box and he tries to get a shot off with his weaker foot, his left, but clearly you can see the trademark: close distance to goal and shoot. So in this play, Ralph is first off the ball, but is making his movement into the penalty area where he likes to score from. You see there, he's following up and he gets a shot off, but unfortunately it's blocked in this play. So in this current play, you see it's a set piece. Ralph is there positioned in the penalty area, wanting to pounce on any second balls. Rightly so, there's a second ball, but unfortunately the keeper has quicker reflexes in this instant and they don't get lucky. Now in this next clip, Ralph is at the edge of the penalty area. He's working his way into the penalty area and a challenge. He controls, gets a shot off, but unfortunately there's a block. But those are his areas. So this play starts on the right flank with MWOS, the under-17s, trying to get a hold of possession. Now Ralph is in the penalty area, but he drops down to try and come and collect. So at the edge he tries to get an attempt off, but you can clearly see he's not as effective as in his closer range there. In the next play, it's off a set piece. Ralph is in play, ball bobs about. It does come to him at a point. He tries to get a shot off, but not as effective. He ends up trying to lay off to a teammate, but unfortunately the communication was off and it comes to naught. They lose possession. So Ralph's high conversion rate in front of goal, as well as his technical ability in terms of creating chances like you see in this play, are part of the contributing factors in the international interest is drawn. As we speak, he is actually scheduled for attending some trials. He's been invited to the top European club. So the baby-faced assassin is tasked with the adult responsibility of taking penalties for the MWOS under-17s. In this play, you see him against Shepherd Reef, I believe in the Mutapa Cup, take a penalty, off his right, go, come and collect it. That's what you need from your number 9, and he's very much confident in front of goal like that, and I believe he's only going to get better with time. So the next aspect we'll look at is how well Ralph links up. So he's got great vision and positional awareness. In this clip you see him start in the middle third, he makes that little run and he comes into position. Then you can see the intelligent little switch of play across the field, being aware of what's happening on the field there. So when he's mobile and active and dropping down deep, he's got engagement which is really entertaining to watch. So I had to reintroduce this play where Ralph is in the half space, middle third area. You see him get control of the ball and make a through pass. I think it's an area where he's familiar with. If you saw the previous play, he can drop a bit deep from his traditional number 9 position and take up balls in threatening areas. Like in this play, we're mainly focusing on retention. Ralph is outside the penalty area. He does a couple of 1-2 exchanges, his presence there. Actually, by keeping the ball, you see that they end up having a shot come off a teammate, and that just shows how critical he is in holding up play. So in this current clip, Ralph's drifted to the right wing there. He can roam as a number 9 as long as he's up front, and you see him bring a little pass back into play into the central area where you make a run. Ralph will be moving usually on the flanks. You see him in the half spaces. He's fluid and his movement like that. I think it's a key attribute of his gameplay. So Ralph is predominantly deployed as a traditional number 9, but sometimes he will drop into the middle third there, especially if the service is poor up front. You see that he's able to get the ball and make those little connections himself. I think it's a key facet of his game, and one should be able to adapt when in play. So in this next clip, we speak about his movement again. This time Ralph was more on the right wing. You see him now come up in this clip. There he's in possession. He holds the ball. Like I said, his ball retention is superb. You see that there he does get to the touchline. They do get a throw in off that play. As you see, there was some pressure. There's a bit of an overload. Ralph is just part of a couple of exchanges which get them out of that bind. You see him, he's in frame now, and they progress, and actually the attack continues on the right flank. So in the current play, you see Ralph is more or less in the penalty area. He charges down, a bit of an athletic and spirited effort. He wins a duel and connects and links up. So in terms of an athlete's build, you see off the set piece, balls played towards Ralph, and he does that little chest control and actually sets up a teammate for a shot. There you see off the play. Unfortunately, it didn't come off as there was a block in there, but clearly you can see that in terms of ball control, in terms of athleticism, he is your traditional number 9. So as a 9 or a 10 leading the line, I believe holding play is a key facet of the game. You see Ralph in frame, he does that. It's an aerial ball, he brings it down under control and he plays it back for them to build off. I think he's great at this, and I think I would actually rank this as one of his greatest strengths in terms of the role he plays. Now in this next play, Ralph is in frame and you see him contesting for a ball. He wins that duel, and as you see, he goes on, maintains possession of the ball, and actually comes to be in a position where he crosses. In my own mind, I think if he plays, even if it's a 10, he'll be able to do in a striker pairing, because his crossing is actually very good, as we'll see later on. Now in this spell of play, Ralph had to drop down a bit deep into midfield. You see him come off with the ball, and his opponent had to use excessive force. The ref had to pull it back. In the next play, Ralph receives a long ball. He's under pressure from the marker. He doesn't lose the ball completely as they still get a throw in. Now in this clip, Ralph is able to hold on to possession. You see him drop onto the left flank, throw his markers, hold it long enough to be able to release and make a pass. Like I said, his hold-up game is impressive. Now in this next clip, you see Ralph is in frame again. He's holding on to possession, trying to run into the box, runs into traffic. He pulls it back. Unfortunately, there's no supporting striker there. So in this clip, we see Ralph drifted to the left flank. You see again more or less the hold-up play we talked about. He dribbles a little bit, trying to find space and something to do. He ends up switching play, as you see with that ball across. Maybe a facet which could improve actually his long passing, and possibly a pairing format where he is a second striker would be more effective. So in this play, Ralph is trying to collect an overhit ball on the left flank. He goes up against 2 defenders. Well, the positive is at least he duels them and they don't really come away with the ball directly. That's a positive, but he's left pulling up his socks, but generally he usually wins. Closing off here, we're going to say that the eye test shows, like in this clip, that Ralph is good for ball retention. On the wings or centrally, he's able to hold up play and allow the other attackers to progress, or just take pressure off the team in terms of him being able to retain the ball for long without losing it, keeping it at his feet. So in the next play, Ralph is actually 1v1 a defender and a relatively physically stronger defender. Despite this, he's able to retain the ball and actually get off a shot. It's off target, but we commend him for that. Now we can't start making comparisons to legends in Zimbabwean game like Maruari, but the young man is off to a flying start if he can hold his own in the Division 2 against professionals like this. So previously I've briefly taken a look at his positional awareness, but I wanted to take a look at this in more detail. In this clip you see him on the right flank and he's dropping deep and he's actually calling for the ball. The net positive is he communicates. In this next clip, you see him again. The pass doesn't get made to him, but he's trying to run into space and he's signaling. The next clip, like I said, when there's no service, he drops deep. There he's dropped and he's trying to actually get himself into a position. The pass doesn't get made to him, but he makes himself available, which is responsive and which is something that I like and can commend. If you keep following the play, he doesn't break or stop his run and he's still anticipating action later on, though that doesn't turn out. In the next play, Ralph is a bit deeper. It's something you could make use of if you're playing in a low block and defending very extremely, or even if you want to be countering. He can pass forward decently, and I think it's something that could be positive that he can be able to do. The next play, he wants to run off the ball, still covering with his body. Unfortunately, it gets snuffed out, but you can see that he's got the intelligence to situations and it's something he can do. In this play, Ralph is running behind his marker into the penalty box. The idea was great, but whoa, they got shut down on the flank. So in the next play, you see the idea again. Ralph is on that left flank again. He's anticipating a pass. I think the first one there gets closed down, but there's a follow-up. He's still running into space. I think that aspect of him being positionally able to see and place himself is something that's very much good. Now I want to draw your attention to something that's very important here. I've already acknowledged his positional awareness, but I want you to see that in the current sequence of plays, he really isn't getting to the ball. I think the challenge is primarily with the quality of service he's getting in terms of the actual balls that come through. If you take a look at this clip in frame, Ralph is there, the ball comes through, but he has to actually turn. He was in a shielding position, but the quality of the pass was not very good. So in this play, MWOS is transitioning from defense to attack. So Ralph is starting from the middle third and trying to latch onto a ball that's been overhit. Fortunately, he gets to it and he avoids a situation where the opposition can start from a goal kick. Instead, they have to start from the touchline and the forwards can actually press. So I believe if the quality of passing improves and there's a higher volume of good passes, I believe with such a clinical strike rate, Ralph and the forward line will generally have even more goals. So in the next play, we want to take a look at what an ideal case looks like. So here, Ralph is in his defensive third, transitions into the middle third, and he sees space and he gestures to it. He runs at the defense and he holds up play while the attacking midfielders come up the field. There you see in the frame. Unfortunately, they couldn't convert, but that's what it would look like with good passes. So I'm going to briefly speak about his aerial positioning. Here it's a set piece, he's in a good position. The choice was to play it on the ground and the delivery was poor. In the next play, you're going to see that the final delivery into the penalty area doesn't come through. They had a throw in, so to speak. The ball didn't get to the position. Now he likes to be free. If you find him there, he does find space in the penalty area, and it's something that you're going to see when we do an aerial assessment of his gameplay later on. Again, unfortunately, you're going to find that the delivery didn't make its way into the penalty box. But positioning, it's a start point. So like I mentioned, Ralph is always leading the line as a traditional number 9. You're going to see that his pressing is mostly upfield. You see him there in this clip running down and trying to apply pressure and help them recover the ball, so to speak. So his activity is primarily in the penalty box, or generally in the areas whether left or right. You find him just using that bit of athleticism he has to be able to try and run down defenders, just cause a bit of havoc and make those passes hurried, so to speak. He also drops, even though in the middle third there you see him being part of the action again. You see him also in this current play coming up and he's just harassing there the defense, just making a nuisance of himself. Generally those are his areas, middle third, final third, but predominantly he's going to be in the final third. It's only when they're under pressure that you really see him dropping down deep, but even then he does make a considerable defensive effort, so to speak, in terms of pressing and actually trying to be able to harass and have them recover the ball. So for a 16-year-old number 9 to have the modesty to be dropping down deep, helping the defense and doing those defensive pressing actions, it's very much commendable. Up top, like you see in this clip, harassing the opposition defense creates opportunities. And even when, like you see in the next clip, where there's throw-ins and they're not really reaching their destination, and he's able to harass and make sure that they don't have turnovers, so to speak, it's commendable, and I believe it's a good aspect of his game that could be exported anyway. This play actually starts with Ralph in a tussle for the ball, so to speak. They drift to the right flank, and in that duel, Ralph does come out on top. He finds, he maneuvers himself, you see in the clip, into a position where he's able to come onto his right stronger foot and deliver a cross. That's very effective and very good aspect of his game. So in a two-striker system where he's able to have someone aerially receiving the ball, I believe that could be something of use. In the next play, the ball is cut off the left flank, Ralph is held up, and he essentially finds an option to say, let me try and make a cross. Again, that system where there are attackers in the area could be very much used. He has great hold up and crossing play, or the idea, so to speak. This next play, we see that idea, a bit of hold up play, turning back and bringing the ball back in field. He on his left this time. Now in this next play, Ralph is under a bit of a challenge, but still he duels, he runs along the field of play, and the delivery is off his right. In the next clip, we see him in the penalty area this time. Not sure if this was an attempt on goal, but I'm thinking it was a cross. Still, you see, crossing, if they are takers, it's an aspect of his game. In this play, we have a proper throw-in. Ralph is in the right position, and you see that little flick on that actually creates a situation and pressure in the box. Unfortunately, there wasn't a proper finish at the end, but you can see. Current clip, we see great positioning. He executes, it's a free header. Unfortunately, it didn't convert, but you can see what we're saying about positioning. Clip, there's a little flick on, it's successful. Now, surprisingly, this is one of the few times that Ralph does have an error or two he contests and does convert. Now, we don't really have the stats, but I have to say that this aspect of Ralph's game is something he really has to improve. I spoke about how he has great hold-up play, that's with his feet, but if I'm taking a look at the eye test in terms of aerial duels, this series of clips you're seeing him coming up in this play prominently in white, he's losing too many of those duels, and though he's exceptionally there, let's say in terms of he's actually contesting the balls in the first place and is getting there, and sometimes he puts pressure on the defense or midfielders in such a way that they do regain possession of some of the balls. I think he loses too many of those duels. I think maybe on the other side we could say, give him benefit of the doubt and say in some of these engagements, considering he's 16 and playing against stronger guys, so to speak, in some of the matches, the aerial duels, he's still yet to grow into his body, and he might find them a bit more imposing if you have a bit more experience in terms of their positioning when they actually go to these head-to-head duels, so to speak. So give him the benefit of the doubt and say aerially he's still yet to grow, he's still yet to grow into his body, he'll improve, but on the ground, if he's scoring so much and getting himself into good goal scoring positions, he's winning ground duels. We'll let him off the hook with that and say he's going to grow into his body and become a better striker over time, so to speak. So there isn't an awful lot of footage where we're having Ralph actually do those bone crunching tackles, so to speak, and like I said, he plays as a traditional number 9. His pressing is what we could say is what he uses to make or challenge and fight for possession, so to speak. He has duels, like you see in this footage. He will win some, he will lose some, so to speak, but generally when you're looking at the games that he plays in, overall he's positive. He contests for the ball and he wins his duels, especially the ground ones. So this has been a technical assessment of Ralph Charuma, the young Panthers gunman. Hopefully he gets the golden boot this season, and in the long term I do hope he gets the move to Europe. I think he can grow into those leagues and possibly represent Zimbabwe at some point. Till the next one.